Hey there everybody, Mark Bates here. I thought I would do something different, and I'm going to build an entire application using Buffalo in this video. Now I might have to break this video into smaller chunks. I haven't planned anything here. All I know is what the app is going to be, and then we're gonna kind of roll with it from there. So I haven't built this app yet, and we're gonna kind of go through and build it all together and stumble across stuff, and you'll see me stumble across stuff and what have you. So, and again, I don't know how long this is going to take, but we're gonna have fun, hopefully. So the app I'm gonna build is a simple URL shortener. We're gonna let people log in with GitHub, Facebook, and Twitter. I think that seems like a good enough collection of ways to log in. You can enter a URL, and it's going to give you back a short URL. I think we all know what URL shorteners are, and then you can kind of paste that around, and it should redirect to that thing, and we'll add tracking too, so the ability to see how many times that URL was clicked on, that sort of stuff. It's not an overly complex app, but hopefully it's decent enough to kind of showcase a lot of the areas we want to kind of explore in Buffalo. Now, for this video, I will be using the development branch of Buffalo, which is what I honestly do all my development on, which isn't too surprising. And this is going to be version 0.95, which is due out in a week or two. So most likely by the time these videos come out, 0.95 will already be out, and everything we're going to talk about will work with 0.95. If I hit a 0.95 only thing, I will call it out and let you know this is only in 0.95. So if you're working on 0.94 or whatever, you'll kind of get the idea. So let's start. I purchased the domain name buff.law. Because it sounds kind of like Buffalo. Buffalo? No? Okay. Anyway, that's what our URL shortener is going to be. So let's do Buffalo new chef Buffalo. Here we go. And that's going to create a fairly straightforward Buffalo application here. And that means we're going to have Webpack front end. We're going to have Postgres backend. All that kind of good stuff, hopefully. And we're just kind of waiting for it to finish. There we go. And so let's go into, I'm going to keep misspelling Buffalo this entire time. So let's create all of our databases with the DB create all flag. Fantastic. So now we have all of our databases. I am going to use a couple plugins here to get us kind of moving in the right direction quicker. The first one I'm going to use is Layout, and this here is the Bootstrap layout plugin I've written, and basically all it does is create a nice layout nav bar and footer. So let's do that here, and I think the only thing I'm going to change is the name of the app to buff.la. There we go. And then the other one I'm going to use is the GothAuth plugin. And this is part of the Goth plugin for Buffalo. What this is going to do is it's going to take that Goth plugin a step further, and it's actually going to create a model for me. It's going to create migrations for me. It's also going to kind of create a full workflow for Goth. So let's see here. Let's run some migrations. Buffalo DB migrate. There we go. So now I should have everything I need. Let's try to fire this up and see what happens. And we'll go to localhost 3000 here, or rather 127 3000. There we go. It's just taking a second for our assets to work. So we don't actually have anything hooked up yet to our login, or at least to the link there. So let's set that up now. So that's good. Matter of fact, we're going to copy this whole thing here, because I like the idea of having a drop down for this. So we'll call this login. And then we don't need another drop down for that. Oh, no, sorry, we do. Yep. What we do need, though, is li, and we'll say GitHub. But, oh, this needs to be a link, doesn't it? Sorry. This is, like I said, this is, we're doing this together. And so this auth GitHub is the pattern that Goth likes to use. Put all this in one line. There we go. And you know, I'm gonna go to font, awesome icons. And let's see if I can find a nice GitHub icon. GitHub, there we go. Boom, just gonna copy all that. And put that right in there. And let's do the same thing for, what did I say? I said Facebook. Facebook. And Twitter. I forgot to... I'm taking a guess at what I think these font awesome icons are going to be. And yeah, look at that. I got them right, but they're a little off. So let's see if there's other icons that might be, the square ones might be good, I think. Yeah, let's see if there's square ones for all of these. Because the alignment's a little off. There we go. And I misspelled square. And I misspelled it again. Let's see here. There we go. The alignment looks a lot better now. Okay, so Goth, let's open up our auth here. You can see when we ran the plugin, it generated kind of a setup for GitHub, Twitter, and Facebook. And by default, it's going to look for environment variables called GitHub _ key, GitHub _ secret, and so on. I already have those set up on my computer. Development ones that all work with 127.0.0.1. So that's kind of why this is about to work. So let's see here. If I log in with GitHub, fantastic. Okay, so that works. Okay, so now that we have our authentication working, let's do a resource here. We'll call it link. It'll have a user ID that is UUID and a link. And it's going to need some sort of a code, which is going to be the short kind of thing, right? So let's generate that here and Buffalo DB migrate. There we go. And if we go back to our site, here you go. We can see we have all of these new endpoints here. And matter of fact, let's go and change our application here, so that, or rather our auth, so that when we log in, we're going to go straight to links. So here, let me log out. Log in with GitHub. There we go. We go straight to links. That's a lot nicer. So let's create a new link. Okay, couple things. First, we want to obviously shove the user ID in ourselves. So we don't want this field. And we also don't want the code either there, because we're going to generate those things. So let's edit our links form, and let's just remove those couple elements. There we go. Make sure the link cannot be blank. Fantastic. And we've got some nice validators going on here for link and code, so that's good. Let's go to our actions links here, and let's go straight to the create section. So that's all looking good. First thing we want to do is let's get, I'm actually going to move the database connection, the transaction up here to the top. And then let's get the user from the context. There we go. And we'll talk about why that's there. And let's go to link, user ID, user. Okay, so why do I know that the current user is there? If I go back to my auth here, when we ran that goth-auth plugin, in our auth callback, when a user comes back from, say, GitHub, what we do is, just kind of reviewing it real quick, is we look to see if that user exists in the database. If it exists, we're going to get that user from the database. So we already found somebody with a GitHub, who came from GitHub with the GitHub ID. And otherwise, we're going to kind of use an empty user. We're going to fill that user with information from GitHub or Facebook or Twitter, what have you. Then we're going to save that user to the database. Save will do either an update or a create based on whether there's an ID or not already. Assuming all that's successful, we're going to put the user ID on the session as current user ID, and then redirect back to links. Now we have a couple of pieces of middleware here. The first one is called set current user, and what that will do is that will look inside the session. If there's a current user ID in the session, it will attempt to find that user, and if it finds that user, it'll put it onto into the context as current user. We also have another piece of middleware called authorize, and what authorize does is it validates that the user is logged in. So all they have to do is make sure they have a current user ID in the session, and then that's it. If there's a current user ID in the session, they're good. They're obviously logged in. So that's great having those middleware, but where are they actually being used? When we generated the goth-auth, we got this section here added to our app.go file. And you notice it starts with set current user. Then it says authorize. So right now, because of this line, the entire application, every single page in the application requires a user to be logged in. Now that's not always what we want, so we're going to skip that authorize middleware for the home handler, because we want to be able to hit the home page even if we're not logged in. And then we have the goth stuff here, and we're also going to skip that same middleware, the authorized middleware, for most of the auth stuff as well. So that's how our login, log out, and home pages get around the authorization problem. And links is covered automatically under the authorization plugin. So if I go to log out here and I go to links, you see I get a warning that I must be authorized to see that page. So here, logging back in, I can go to create a link here. I'm getting an error now because link is blank. Okay. I hope that all made some semblance of sense. So we've set the link ID here. That's good. But we do need to set the code. So how are we going to go about setting the code? I think the easiest way is to use a callback here. So on the link here, if I can spell link, there is a new callback called before validations, and that's going to take a pop connection. Here we go. And it's going to return an error. So now what we want to do is we want to say if the code is an empty string, right? We obviously want to generate a code here if it's empty. And if everything's successful, we're just going to return nil. Okay, so better yet, here we go. We'll say if code does not equal an empty string, return nil, because it's already been set, right? So here we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the SHA-1 package to create a new SHA. And to do that, we're going to say write, and we're going to, let's see here, use the user ID bytes, right? We'll add that in there, and then we're gonna need a byte representation of the link, like that. And then we can get a nice string of all of this here by doing %x and then h sum, and we can give it a nil. And I think only we only need like the first 7 or 8 kind of characters of it, right? We don't need it to be super long. Now, here's the big thing is we need these to be unique. So we're gonna do 2 things. First, we're going to write in a kind of a salt here. And I think we'll just do toString here. I think that's good enough for assault. And then we also want to check to make sure it exists, right? So we'll say exists error tx where code equals code exists on links. So that's going to tell us whether that code exists in the links table. And obviously, if there's an error, we want to return the error. If it exists, then what we want to do is return this whole thing again, right? Let it run through this spiel again. Otherwise, let's set the code here equal to the code we generated, and return nil. So hopefully all that works, and we're gonna go back in a few minutes and write some tests for all this here. So let's go back to our page here, and let's put in gobuffalo.io. There we go, look at that. That worked, fantastic. Well, before we go further here, let's actually test that function to make sure it works. We've got this model suite here, so we can use that to build nice tests here. So we'll say, what is it called? It's called model suite, I believe. We'll say test link before validations here, and hopefully that all worked. Fabulous. So link models link here. And we're going to give it a new user ID, which is UUID new, I believe. Let's find out. Let's see. First of all, that's not even the right UUID. So let's grab the correct one. Sometimes Go Imports gets it right, and sometimes it doesn't. So let's see what I got here for creating a new... yes. New v4, I believe is what I'm looking for. There we go. And we'll give it a link here of gobuffalo.io. And then we can say link before validations, and this should give us a DB here. And MS no error. But for right now, we just want to make sure that this test passed. It did, so it didn't create an error. And then we should say, MS no zero link dot code. So there we go. So let's make sure that we've got a valid code. Yep, and we can say the length of link.code should be, let's just say 2. Now, this should fail, but I just want to make sure it fails, right? There we go. It should have 7, right? The code should be 7 long, because that's what we said. And that looks like it should all pass now. Okay, fantastic. So we're getting there. We actually have working working code here, which is pretty nice. Okay, so we have a bit of a problem in our code now. Those of you who pay close attention probably have already figured out what the problem is, but those of you who haven't, let me demonstrate. Let me log in with Twitter here. I'm going to authorize this app. I'm logged in. You can see I've got a different name up here. Let me create a new link now. I'll create a link to twitter.com/go Buffalo, which I believe is my Twitter handle. Let me just use Mark's Twitter handle. I should know my Twitter handle off the top of my head, shouldn't I? Okay, here's my problem. Two different users have created two different links in the database, and I'm seeing all of them. This is a problem, and this is a big problem. This is obviously a big security hole we have here. So we need to rectify that. So how are we going to go about doing that? Well, first you can kind of see it's happening right here. We're just getting all, right? We're not really scoping this to anything. But this actually works, is true of all of these things here. So we definitely have a problem. Let's start by writing some tests for all of this stuff here. So yeah, let's go ahead and let's start with the index test here. The tests are lists. So first thing we need is we're going to need a user, right? Because we know we have to be logged in. So we can say user, models user here, and I believe we need a name. So we'll call it Mark, and an email, which is mark@example.com. We need a provider, which we'll call faux, and a provider ID of 123. Do we need anything else? Nope, that's good enough. Just those four. Okay. So I've got this user here. Now we just need to, that's a nullable field, because not all providers give us proper emails back, so we store them as nullable in the database. So we have to use a special type because Go doesn't deal with nullable values very, very well. So then we also need to create this user here. So we'll just make sure that AS no error. Okay, so we've created a user, put the user, let's see, in the database. Then we can say on our session, let's set current user ID equal to the user's ID. So this way they are now logged in. And now I can make an HTML request to links. That'll be a get. Get the response back here. I'm going to make sure we got a 200 for the code. Let's just run all that and make sure we're doing good so far here. Yep, okay, so that's great. So that works. Now let's add another test. Let's actually add a link into the database. And we will do, we'll say link here, models link, and a link has a link. We'll say example.com. User ID is my user ID. And I will just set a code here. And then again, I'm going to copy this whole line of code here. And okay. So we should also say that contains our body here should contain the link, right? So let's run our tests. Perfect. Okay. That's great. So now we have a working test for our resource list here. And we're doing good, but we've got a ton of duplication here. I don't like... First of all, this session stuff should be up here, right? I don't like how much duplication we have, or we're about to have. So all this stuff up here can probably be extracted. So let's go to our actions test here. We've got this nice test suite that we can hang things off of, so let's do that. Let's see here. Say login, and that's going to return a models user here. There we go, and we'd say return user. Okay, let's get rid of all that, and we'll say user as login here. This is one of the nice parts about these suites, apart from things like the fact it cleans up, truncates our database between each run, and gives us access to all these nice little helpers, but we can also hang things off it. These nice helper methods here. Okay, so fantastic. This looks good. This is, we've got a resource generated here. So let's do our next one, which would be link show. And we can actually kind of copy most of what's in here, and this time we can say link dot id like that, and that should also work. Whoop. Or maybe not. Let's see here. It's because it made a get link. I thought as.html was... Oh yes, there we go. It's a formatted string. We just need to actually format it. Okay, fantastic. So we're getting there. Now this one should be a lot easier. We should just be able to say as login and then make an HTML request to /links/new.get and as equal 200 for res code, and the page I think should contain new link. We'll see in a second here. Body string, there we go. Yep, okay, that all worked just fine. And I'm gonna copy all of this for the edit here, because that's, oh, no, maybe we need a little bit more here. So I'm already beginning to think that maybe we need to extract this link stuff out here. So let's do as action suite, create link, and that's going to give me back models.link. Here, let me just copy all that like that. And instead of generating, oh, we need to give it a user, which is a models user. And now we're going to do validate and create the link. And we'll let it generate our code for us. And as no error. And as false. We shouldn't have any validation errors here at all, and we will return the link. Okay. So let's clean up our code here just a little bit. There we go. And just gonna move those up there a little bit, and we'll do the same thing down here in resource. And this time we'll say link dots ID, and I think this should say something like edit link.